In this episode of Vinyl Haul, I've got a decent mix of thrash, heavy, and death, including a live album, a trad metal record I've been trying to find for a while, and the latest from a rather notorious blackened speed metal band. Stick around. First up is the debut full-length album from British death metal band DeathCollector. This is Death's Toll, released in 2023 by Prosthetic Records. So definitely some old-school death metal worship here with some winks and nods to the old earache bands of the early 1990s. And not just the British ones, I'm also catching hints of Massacre and Morbid Angel here. Vocals are growly and distorted, along with rapid double bass, crunching and menacing riffs, and sharp sweeping leads. Also, many of the tracks will contain at least one totally head-bangable riff amidst the frenzy. Plenty of tempo change-ups here to keep it from being samey from track to track, all the while not lacking in brutality. And helping to deliver some of that brutality is drummer Andy Whale, whom some of you might remember as being on the first 5 Bolt Thrower albums. And yes, there is a fair amount of Bolt Thrower influence here, notably in the track DeathCollector, but also elsewhere. I should say that despite wearing their influences outwardly, they're not a clone band by any stretch. There is plenty of their own style here to put that assumption to rest, and enough appeal to many modern genre fans as a result. Anyways, vinyl variant on this one is red. It is limited to 500 copies. Also, we get an insert. Lyrics on one side, lyrics and credits on the reverse. As for favorites on this record, definitely Death's Toll, also Course, Visions, and Revel in the Gore. There's also a music video available for the title track. You should definitely check that out at the Prosthetic Records YouTube channel. So if you missed those old days of Napalm Death and other earache bands, but are also wanting a record that delivers it in a more modern context, then Britain's DeathCollector is a solid band to check out. They also have an EP before this called Time's Up from 2022, which I've yet to hear. But given this record, I'll definitely be getting to that one soon enough. Overall, this is a great little death metal record. It's brutal, bang-worthy, and never sits in one place for very long. You should absolutely look into this one. It's good. Next is a live album from Canadian death thrash band Slaughter. This is Live, the Starwood, Toronto, November 24th, 1985. Released in 2022 by Cursed Blessings Records. So I wanted to read the described recording method here on the cover because it's so DIY. Recorded live from the show on a Sony WM-R15 with EDM 101 SW external microphone, clipped to a leather jacket. Amazing. Anyways, I also did want to talk about the record label for a bit. Cursed Blessings Records was started during the pandemic by Al Nolan and Doug Smart in Toronto, basically out of Al's house, and concentrated on punk, hardcore, and metal bands, including Slaughter, who are also from Toronto. Incidentally, the label also offers up some live material from fellow Canadians Sacrifice, if interested. In fact, Slaughter dedicates Maim to Please in this live set to Sacrifice singer and guitarist Rob Urbanati, and also makes reference to Joe Rico, also in Sacrifice, so that's kind of fun. I also suspect they're in the crowd that night, if they're not even playing that night, so there's that. Anyways, with that out of the way, we are talking about Slaughter here. And no, not the Los Angeles hard rock band from the 1980s, but rather the death thrash band who, if you really think about it, probably makes more sense to have this name. At any rate, we've got this live performance of 12 tracks from a band that is no longer active, unfortunately. This is also 2 years before they put out their more or less only studio album, Strapato, which is a bit of a cult classic now. Half the set is tracks that would be on that album, with the others being originally from demos. There's also a cover tune here, namely Into the Crypt of Rays by Celtic Frost. The sound of this should also be mentioned, even though I already read the description from the cover. It's basically okay bootleg quality, but with some separation between instruments. What's interesting is that they sound more like a hardcore band here, but maybe that was the live show's appeal to the record label. Even still, it's great to hear this band pre-album. Anyways, vinyl variant on this one is classic black. It is limited to 500 hand-numbered copies. Mine is 387. I also really love the mock bonsai labels here. Really, really Canadian. Love it. And you can see that my number is right there. 387. Anyways, favorites include Tortured Souls, Fuck of Death, and Bloody Carnage. So anyways, hats off to Cursed Blessings for releasing early live material from these classic Canadian metal bands. In fact, I wouldn't mind more of this, including ones from Razor and Exciter, if that's at all possible. As for this record, the sound is passable, but we're also talking about a classic era of this band, so any documentation of this sort is worthwhile. Check it out. Next up is the first full-length album from American heavy metal band Shadowland. This is the Necromancer's Castle, released in 2021 by No Remorse Records. So a synth and wailing guitar intro brings us quickly to a brief spoken word part, and then straight into the heavy metal riffage and soaring female vocals. Speaking of the latter, Tanya's voice certainly has an almost Betsy Bitch quality to it, but with some added power and grit. She also does the artwork on the cover, so that's kind of cool. We also get some twin harmonic riffs and solos hinting at a Judas Priest influence, but also moments of speed runs and general shred. An epic feel all around, but filtered through as implied that early 80s Sunset Strip sound before the hair bands took over. In rare moments, they do dip into that first wave hair metal sound, but more along the lines of, say, Rough Cut rather than Dokken. The songwriting here is also pretty strong, despite the raw production, and provides a wealth of both solid riffs and, again, cool harmonic moments. And some folks are hearing Nawabum influences on this record, but aside from some infrequent Maiden riffing, I'm just not hearing it. Rather, there's a lot more classic US metal here. A lot more. Anyways, vinyl variant on this one is classic black. There you are. There was also a red variant at 100 copies, but I just couldn't track that one down. So black it is. Let's get an insert. Cool picture of the band. And lyrics and credits on the reverse. As for favorites, you should definitely check out Necromancer's Castle, also Rising Tide, and Warhound. Of the three, maybe check out Warhound first. It is my very favorite song on this album. I think you'd dig it too. So I'd seen this band live last year and was pretty much blown away by them. They didn't have this album for sale at the merch table, and upon talking to the band, it seems the record is a bit out of print and tough to get, which proved correct for me. Anyways, while record shopping during my recent vacation in Colorado, I hit Chain Reaction in the Denver area, and lo and behold, there it was in the bin. Couldn't believe it. So this one basically fell in my lap after a really long search. And now that I've heard it, it is definitely worth the wait. Great classic heavy metal, reminiscent of all of those smaller but killer bands I discovered as a kid on those Metal Massacre compilation albums. Definitely looking forward to future material from Shadowland. Next is the debut studio album from American melodic death metal band Majesties. This is Vast Reaches Unclaimed, released in 2023 by 20 Buck Spin. So this is a side project from members of Antiverse, Inexorum, and Obsequii, the latter two of which are good to mention considering their influences on this material. So their melodic black metal elements make their way into this melodic death metal record, which otherwise harkens back to the early Gothenburg sound before many of those bands wandered into, shall we say, other pastures. Because the needle leans slightly more into death metal than the melodic, we're not getting a lot of the saccharine moments common in mellow death, but rather a bit more crunch and intensity. Even still, some of that melodic classical structure is here, underneath screechy and growly vocals and some great interplay between guitars, often one cascading into the other and back again, which is pretty cool. Riffs also move a great deal between epic gallops and melancholic wailing, with some frequent acoustic work as well. Anyways, vinyl variant on this one is black inside blood red. It's very similar to that Fugitive record I showed some time back, also on 20 Buck Spin, so this might be a common variant for that label in general. Just gonna say that. You also get an insert, lyrics, credits, picture of the band. On the reverse, more lyrics, more credits. Favorites on this one definitely are Gracious Captors, very cool song, also Across the Neverwind, and the album closer Journey's End, cool song. Also thanks go out to Mark over at Mark G with a C YouTube channel for covering this record, as that's how I discovered it. Of course, you should already be watching Mark's channel, but in case you aren't, you should correct that error post-haste. Anyways, while this is certainly melodeath, it does lack a lot of the musical cloying of modern bands, and the additional black metal components bring the record into a slightly darker place while providing some needed energy, which works well overall. So, not a Gothenburg copycat band, but it does pull from its early days a bit. While it's worth checking out, reactions will likely vary, but I gotta say, I dig it. Next up is the 5th studio album from American heavy metal band Spirit Adrift. This is Ghost at the Gallows, released in 2023 by Century Media Records. So it's safe to say that Spirit Adrift have once again stuck to their traditional heavy metal switchover from about 4 years back, but also bringing in hints of its former doom metal past as well. The album opens with a somber acoustic passage, quickly interrupted by a triumphant transitional riff, leading to the up-tempo main riff and Nate Garrett's slightly gruff but melodic vocals. Not too dissimilar from when Gene Simmons goes the melodic route, but perhaps to greater effect. Riffs on this one run the gamut from melodic to heavy to even dipping into thrash, speed, and groove metal here and there. One moment you're getting the Maiden Priest thing, other moments the riffs are Master-era Metallica, and in others a vague Sabbath tinge, all the while Garrett's vocals unifying the tracks. As for the solos, most of them totally rip, especially Hanged Man's Revenge. Nice use of guitar interplay and layering, occasionally bringing in an oddly disorienting quality. The half ballad, half rocker, These Two Hands, is good for what it is, but also breaks the flow of the album a little. Might have been better at the end of the record rather than near the middle. Also digging the 1-2 punch on side B with Death Won't Stop Me and I Shall Return, which promptly brings us back into this album. There are also some rather conspicuous vocal moments in the already Testament-esque Siren of the South, where Nate is clearly channeling Chuck Billy's melodic voice. Trust me, you'll hear it when it comes. And yet, despite the divergent influences here, it all comes across as largely cohesive, with the opening and closing tracks musically and thematically bookending the album nicely. As for vinyl variant, it is bone. It is limited to 700 copies. Cool graphic on the reverse there. You also get a lyric booklet. A pretty nice lyric booklet. I won't go through the whole thing, but get the basic idea. There. And there. 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 And that graphic from side B of the record again. As for favorites, we should definitely be talking about Give Her to the River, great song, also Barn Burner, and Hanged Man's Revenge. And since these are the first 3 songs on the album, it's fair to say that this record is somewhat front-loaded, but there are quality tracks on the B-side in case you thought things went downhill from there. They hadn't. Anyways, music video is available for the track Barn Burner, as well as lyric videos for Death Won't Stop Me and I Shall Return. You can find those at the Century Media Records YouTube channel. So it took Spirit Adrift 4 years to put out a new full-length album, and I'd say this is on par with Enlightened in Eternity, and occasionally exceeds it, so overall worth the wait. We did get a couple EPs in that time, one that I bought and was pretty good. The other full of cover songs that just weren't interesting to me. So it's nice to have another full-length out for this band. Definitely satisfied with this one, and we'll be spinning it on occasion. Not bad. Next is the 5th studio album from American death metal band Vastum. This is Inward to Gethsemane, released in 2023 by $20 Spin. So the record opens with ominous tones and distant chants, quickly punctuated by rapid and sometimes off-kilter riffs, pummeling drums, and the Black Death combo of vocalists Leah Abdul-Rauf and Daniel Butler, respectively. In fact, love the vocal trade-offs here in general between the shrieks and the growls. Definitely not your typical male-female metal vocalist duo, with the woman's pretty singing offsetting the man's beastly gutturals. I think we've all heard that before. Lots of tremolo solos as well along the Slayer meets Morbid Angel line, but certainly trapped in the mire of filthy death metal. Definitely an oppressive and cavernous atmosphere full of chaos and menace, either alternating or even simultaneously, some of which probably coming from influences such as Incantation and Autopsy. Tracks are generally between 5 to 8 minutes long, so some might assume some bloat here and there, while others will be amply satisfied. We are talking a 38-minute album here, so not a really big deal for me in particular. In many of the mid-pace moments, we get pounding groove riffs, which provide plenty of chances for headbanging, ones that are admittedly a bit hard to resist. Even the spoken word samples are fun and thankfully not overused. Anyways, vinyl variant on this one is classic black. All right, much the same on the reverse. Let's get an insert here. Picture of the band, some credits, lyrics on the reverse. Also, not the trifiction, in case you're wondering. Anyways, favorites on this one include In Bed with Death, Priapic Chasms, and Indwelling Archon. So, not knowing a lot about this band initially, I thought this might have been a black metal album given this cover art. Granted, there are some blackened vocals at times here, but this is definitely death metal. Anyways, after streaming it, I was dead wrong about the genre, so clearly I bought it and liked what I heard. Again, dig the vocal trade-offs, but also the gloomy and brutal atmosphere overall. I've heard good things about the other 4 albums in their back catalog, so I'll be checking into those in the future for sure. So yeah, good album. Next up is the 6th studio album from American blackened speed metal band Midnight. This is Hellish Expectations, released in 2024 by Metal Blade Records. So with Midnight, what you've heard before is often enough what you're going to get now. It's that stripped down black and roll Venom meets Motorhead thing, full of rawness and punk aggression. So you get that on this record too. Anyways, riffs are simple, fun, and catchy, often accompanied by standard D-beat drumming, and those distorted and barked vocals from Athanar. Production is raw, per usual, which adds to the punkishness of the tracks. In fact, I'd say that this album indulges in punk elements far more often than this band has done in a few albums at this point. Some might see this as a return to form in some respects, and I'd more or less agree. However, we do get some variety on occasion, although within the rigid Midnight template. I'm hearing some of that in Dungeon Lust specifically, and would like more of that variety, but again, we get what we get from this band. Also, it seems that the solos are more up in the mix than usual, so that's an observation, I guess. Anyways, vinyl variant on this one is Sangria, which is basically pink-orange marbled, also a US exclusive. Kind of looks like Pepto-Bismol, realistically, but there you go. Also an insert. Credits on one side. Handwritten lyrics on the other. By the way, fuck off. Anyways, favorites. They include Expect Total Hell, Masked and Deadly, and Dungeon Lust. Also, the album ender FOAL is a lot of fun too. And speaking of which, there is a music video for FOAL, as well as a lyric video for Nuclear Savior. Watch both of the Metal Blade Records YouTube channel. So as far as recent Midnight records, I'd put this one a little bit higher than Let There Be Witchery, which admittedly fell away from me a bit over time. But I'd also put this a little under Rebirth by Blasphemy, which is still my favorite Midnight album. Total runtime on Hellish Expectations is a little over 25 minutes, so it's a pretty quick listen for sure. But maybe also contextualized by the fact that Athanar wrote this entire record in a single weekend, as he has admitted. It's an overall solid listen and a fun record, though. Again, not my favorite of the bunch. To be fair, I did like it more with repeated listens, so I might suggest that to some who heard it once and then dismissed it. Give it a shot. So just a couple things that I picked up that I have less to talk about, but are certainly worth showing. Starting with the 3rd studio album from American power speed metal band Ravage, entitled The Return of the Spectral Rider, released in 2017 by Society for Worldwide Ravage. So as many might know, Eric and I covered this record on episode 4 of Hook Me Up. Each of us went into detail on the record, including a small review from me, so you can check that out when you have the time. Just wanted to show that I actually got it. And let's show the vinyl. Go, classic black. Cool labels on both sides. You get quite a bit in here, actually. Cool full color inner sleeve with some lyrics. The artwork. More lyrics. Pictures of the band. So get another insert with some credits. On one side, collage on the reverse. So you get a postcard, some cool art. Send it to someone you love. Why not? There's more. Also, check out some of this other stuff down here. There's a cool sticker. There you go. A few download cards. And we got 2 posters. Take a look at both of those. One with the artwork. Very nice. And this one. Some artwork I had never seen before. So cool that it's in here. There you go. And there's the back with the track listings and some additional credits, pictures of the band, and all of that. Anyways, thank you to Eric, rather, for introducing me to Ravage. Very psyched about this band. Also, I recently bought the latest EP from American death metal band Blood Incantation. That's right side up. This is Luminescent Bridge, released in 2023 by Century Media Records. So an EP of just 2 songs, each of which averaging about 9 minutes in length. One track along the lines of Time Wave Zero, and the other one clearly steeped in their otherwise death metal sound, in case you were worried. Vinyl on this one, I believe, is gold. And look, I'm right. There we go. And the reverse. And nothing else there. Just the track listings and all of that. Anyways, when I bought this EP on Bandcamp, I also got this tote bag, which I didn't expect, with the logo there, and Cosmic Music for Cosmic People on the back. Sure, why not? Anyways, not a big tote bag kind of guy, but I might hang this up somewhere like the others behind me. Anyways, good band, difficult to read logo. So I bought about half of these albums on that vacation of mine I mentioned before, plus others we'll discuss next month, and also the month after. Did I mention I bought a lot of records? I bought a lot of records. But I especially love buying records when I'm out and about in another place entirely, especially out of state. Gotta say, you've got some great record stores, Colorado. Hopefully, you appreciate that. Of course, this is the time when I ask you what you bought recently. You should let me know what you got, what you might get, or even whatever's good on streaming. Tell me that and anything else along those lines in the comments below. And if this is your first time to my channel, my name is Matt. This is the Accusation Network, where each and every week I do videos on metal vinyl collecting, but also classic and modern metal in general. If you like the sound of that, definitely give this video a like. Maybe also subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so. And as always, I appreciate it if you share my videos with some of your friends on social media. And again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.